If, like me, you're not all that familiar with the beer style of Scottish heavy, you might be surprised to learn that this heavy beer is actually a low alcohol session beer. This thing's going to come out at about 3.4%. I am going to brew one while reusing some yeast from a previous batch. Let's do it.
Don't try to fight it, I can see it through. I wish you good fortune.
Hi, I'm Martin Keane. I'm taking the Homebrew Challenge to brew 99 beers in 99 weeks. Now, Scottish ales come in 3 sets of weights, much like the English bitters did. So when I was doing the English bitters, there was ordinary bitter, best bitter, and then extra special bitter. And they were all basically the same beer type, and really the difference was just in the strength. The same is true with these Scottish ales, where the lightest one is Scottish Light, then this one is Scottish Heavy, and then you have Scottish Export. And they're also known as 60 shilling, 70 shilling and 80 shilling, which was based on how they were taxed back in the day. So when putting together a beer like this, we really want to draw out those classic Scottish ale characteristics of biscuit and caramel and no real discernible hop bitterness. So we're going to build a beer with an original gravity of 1035 for a robust 3.4% beer. The grist is going to consist of a base malt of Maris Otter that makes up 72% of the grist. Also be adding in Crystal 45, that is 14%. Then white wheat malt at 7%. And just to add a little touch of spiciness, I'm going to add Chocolate Rye at 7%. I think this will be the first time I've used any sort of rye malt in a beer in the Homebrew Challenge.
But did you ever take a chance? You gotta give it all you got. You gotta give it all you got. It's easy to be someone when it's someone.
Now, chilling in here is last week's beer, Scottish Light, and this is the beer I'm going to collect yeast from to put into the Scottish Heavy. Now, when I brewed this originally, I just left it fermenting in my basement because I couldn't fit this Firmzilla fermenter into my chest freezer. The stand just meant it was too big. But what I figured out actually is if I removed the stand and I unscrewed the little collection jar underneath, then this would actually sit on the floor in my fermentation chamber here in my chest freezer. So I've been leaving it in here to cold crash. Now, when collecting yeast, it's pretty important, I think, to do a cold crash because that way I can ensure that all of the yeast is not going to be in solution in the beer. It's all going to have fallen to the bottom, which is exactly where we need it to be in order to collect it. Now, my only concern about halving yeast from this particular beer, Scottish Light, is that the fermentation for this thing was pretty uneventful. Normally when you ferment in a clear fermenter like these Firmzillas, it puts on quite a show. The crowd rises up, you see all sorts of things going on in the beer. This was definitely a bit of a non-event. There wasn't much to see, and I think that comes down to the fact that this is such a low gravity and low alcohol beer. This is going to be sort of a 2% beer, so not an awful lot was going on. That makes me wonder how much the yeast have propagated in this beer and how much there will be to collect. For hops, I am going with just one charge of hops, and that's the bittering hops, that's Fuggle. I'm going to put this in at the start of the boil to get about 19 IBU of bitterness. Now, thanks to everybody who's weighed in on my drippy range hood. It's always dripping back down during the boil. What I'm trying today is I've removed these grates and I'm just going to let the condensation go straight up here and see what happens. Well, that didn't help at all. What's happening now is the water's hitting the metal inside of the hood, and then it's condensating back to water and dripping back down. At least I'll put these back in now. At least with these in, there's somewhere for the water to be caught before it drips disgustingly back into my boil kettle. So still some work to do here.
Are you gone? Oh, 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 oh. And the part of me that makes things happen is the same part that just gives up. And I can't seem to keep it in balance. And your face is just the missing coal.
Beer is in the fermenter, everything went fine. It's really easy to do these boils when there's just one hop addition. So yeah, it came out at 10:35, everything looks great. So it's now time to get some yeast to put into this beer. So I am now going to connect this collection jar, which I have sanitized. I'm going to screw it to the bottom of this Firmzilla, and then I'm going to open the dump valve and see what I get. All right, that seems to be fairly securely on. Now, to open the dump valve and see what happens. Okay, got some stuff in there. Now, the other thing to consider here is that this is under pressure, which means that this is also now under pressure. And if I attempt to remove this while under pressure, I'm likely to get a bit of a foamy mess. So that's where these caps on the side really help, because I'm just going to loosen one of these caps just to let the pressure out a little bit and hopefully not spill everything everywhere. Well, I think my fear about there not being much of a yeast cake at the bottom of the Scottish Light is really unfounded. This is a very flocculent looking yeast. Now, if this were going into a beer style that was much different from the beer that I've just brewed, I might really want to spend a bit of time separating the liquid from the yeast. The easiest way actually probably to do that would be just to let this settle for a bit longer at a really cold temperature, and then just kind of pour the stuff off the top, same as you might do with a yeast starter. The fact that the Scottish Light and the Scottish Heavy are such similar beers means I'm just going to skip that whole step entirely and just pour this directly in to my beer. And for those following along at home that maybe don't have an existing yeast cake to steal from, I'm actually using here Wyeast 1728. This is Scottish ale yeast, and yes, I do have an extra packet at home just in case this doesn't work out. One way to find out. All right, Lauren, back for more Scottish beers.
Hi.
So this one, my goodness, it fermented quickly. Within a day of adding in the harvested yeast from the Scottish Light, fermentation had completed. It's the fastest fermentation I've ever seen. So let's compare this one to the lighter version, the Scottish Light that we tasted last week. Can you notice any difference in appearance from the Light?
To me it kind of looks the same. I mean, it's got that dark color.
Yep.
Like caramelly if you really hold it into the light.
Right. There's sort of a dark caramel color to it. I think if you put the two beers side by side, pretty hard to tell them apart, right?
I agree.
Now, let's see if you're getting anything on the aroma this time.
Okay, well, compared to the Light, this one just has more of a smell to it. I'd say it's definitely a bit more maltiness coming through.
Yeah, definitely some malty caramel notes. It was much more subtle on the Light, I think. So how about the taste? Keeping in mind your comment on the taste last time was what?
It's just pointless for a low beer.
Yeah,
2 point something.
It doesn't even taste to anything. So let's see about this. Well, I think this one does have a bit more taste. What do you think?
Yeah, there's definitely it kind of takes how it smells with the malty notes to it. Also, I personally think it takes a bit like chocolate too, a bit chocolatey.
Bit of a chocolate taste, yeah, I get that. Yep, sort of you have getting those dark roasted malts in the flavour a bit.
Yep.
So of the two beers you've tried so far, Scottish Light and Scottish Heavy, which would you say was your preference?
This is probably my preference just because it tastes more of a beer. The light one, like I said, didn't really have anything that kind of like jumped out at you when you drank it. Whereas this one, like, I know I'm drinking a beer when I'm drinking this one.
And that's always a good sign that you know you're drinking a beer and not some sort of carbonated water.
There you go, yeah.
Well, this is 2 of 3 in the Scottish beers. It's Scottish Export next week. We'll see how that one turns out. But for now, cheers.
Cheers.